Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for your time
Oh, thank you.
and allowing me this opportunity.
Thank you.
The first question is, who are your role models and why? From childhood to now, I'm going to be vague on that from the standpoint of remembering names, but definitely some of the role models would be some of the presidents we've had, Reagan, for an example, Eisenhower, that I admire certain traits about them. My father, who I really didn't know that much, he definitely it was maybe a real or imagined role model from the standpoint he was my dad. He was an Anderson. Being an Anderson meant a lot to me. And when my mother remarried to a Tyler, I always took pride in the fact that Andersons had certain standards and such. John Wayne was a role model just from the standpoint of what he appeared to stand for in his movies and stuff. The characters he consistently portrayed, I could relate to. I guess some of the values he portrayed. Balance in your professional and your personal life is, I've come a long way in 20 years. I was self-employed as a computer software person and consultant. And then when I came to the college, I don't think I ever was a workaholic, but I spent a whole lot of time at work. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, spring break was mostly, okay, there's nobody around, I can go to the office and get a lot done. Before I became full-time in positions, I was running a full-time business of my own and part-time job at the college. So off time at the college meant time I could spend more on the business
Yeah.
or trying to get caught up at work. And then, we'll say 10 years ago, I kind of came to grips with that, and I started a ledger in that, okay, I'm off of spring break for 5 days. Okay, I will spend no more than 2.5 of those on work, and then 2.5 of them on totally myself. Same thing would apply to weekends and such. And I'm thankful now that pretty much when I'm not here, I don't think about here. Weekends, what I may do is just to kind of get ahead, is check some email. Not spend a lot of time on it, but just sort of so that way Monday's not a mess, or there's things I want staff working on. But for the most part now, I'm able to separate those two. When I go home in the evenings, I hide in the television, in that if I'm watching a TV show, I can totally blank it out, type thing. So that's kind of the balance now. It's definitely shifted completely from 20 years ago. Well, basically, is I would have a book with ideas for spring break or Christmas break or even vacation time. I give away so much vacation time just because I don't plan. But anyhow, I'd sit down and look at it and say, wait a minute. We go back to work after the Christmas break, and I saw the family for 2 days, and I went shopping for 3 days, and the rest of it was working. I'm like, this is stupid. Well, the old Larry would feel guilty, like, half a day, so I didn't stay up late tonight catching up. Yesterday didn't bother me. I'll turn in my leave time off.
Yeah,
I'm off.
yeah.
It's one of my benefits,
Yeah.
type thing. And that's been a real struggle over the years. On my journey to becoming a director, if 20 years ago I had ambition of being a director, then I probably would have done a lot of things differently. More professional development, more involved with other departments and functions within the college. My educational classes and all would have been totally somewhat different. But I honestly just stumbled into this job. I take pride in that I helped the college start doing personal computer training for the district. I've received a paycheck from the college since 1983, every month, nonstop from 83. And so you think about personal computers back then, and they were just getting started. And Dr. David Wells said, here's the future here. We need to do some training. I was really learning myself as we were doing the training. We began the first computer classes and carried it for a good while until it began to spread a little bit. So my whole background was software, in computers, and what I would have wanted to do was be able to teach, but a problem I've had lifetime is having the degrees that meet the qualifications to allow me to teach. In fact, one semester I was supposed to teach basically kind of like an introduction to computer class, that I was definitely qualified for and everything. And actually 2 days before class, I got a call from the department chair or whatever saying, well, you can't teach because you don't have the credentials. Which made it worse is someone in HR was teaching the same class. It had maybe the credentials, but none of the experience that I had. But I was able to teach in the non-credit part of it, the credit part. Well, I understand software, I understood computers enough that I could work in that arena, and I was happy doing that. And then when the opening for the director came, I applied, really with no expectations of getting the job. I applied because I knew the people in the department, I knew the person making the decision and the person above that was making the decision, and I thought, what the heck? I think one thing that benefited me getting the job was not my knowledge of adult ed, my knowledge of much other things, but the director before me had really done some damage with staff and relationships and such. And so it was more, we need somebody that's got some knowledge and background of the college, but also has a history of being able to work with people and rebuild these relationships. And that was a more valuable commodity than my adult ed. And then I think also they knew, management knew that other people here knew the adult ed part of it. So if I could mend some bridges and console some folks, that was important. So that's really how I became a director. It was really never a life ambition. In some ways prefer to be on a campus working more with students and all of that. That's how I became the director, and believe I'm doing a reasonable good job of it. Okay, originally I was in continuing ed at Northeast campus. Okay. And then we went to Datatel. And the dean of continuing ed, my boss, left to go to A&M Commerce. It's a real good school up the highway a little ways. Great school. People need to be going there. They got a great doctoral program. They needed someone to represent and protect continuing ed's interest with this new student system, the Datatel. Okay. And since I had the background and all, I was chosen for that. And then over time, I quit coordinating computer classes and was responsible for Datatel and created a group finally known as C.Support. It had to do with building sections, running reports, etc. Then I was, myself and my department, was the go-to person. And then we had an associate vice chancellor, Kathleen Noble, but she was over corporate, small business, my function, and maybe a couple other things that I can't think of. She decided to move me from Northeast campus to this building. So I was in this building, which is managed and overseen by corporate, but just as a spot to be, yeah. And so I came from the C.Support to this job. And again, in that previous role, I was aware of how workforce services worked. As far as what they had learning centers, they offered GED type things. So I knew who they were.
Yeah.
And I knew a good part of the staff just from association. On record, have never ever worked for it and have no plans to ever work for corporate services, corporate solutions, economic development, or their affiliates thereof. A great leader, I'm still learning, especially a great leader in higher ed, still learning. Part of it is being able to work with different personalities, trying to seek out what people's strengths are, and then how those strengths can be applied to the task at hand, but also realizing sometimes whether you're strong in an area or not, if it's something's got to get done, it's got to get done. I think a quality I have is trying to keep a perspective of where we're at and what needs to be done. You don't want to talk about what we're going to do this time next year. You're just worried about now. And I say, yeah, because if we don't take care of now, there won't be this time next year. A trait that a person needs that I don't necessarily have is being able to mix and match different personalities and somehow find happy blends when those personalities, don't mix very well. I think it's very important to be able to plan, have a vision, but not just your own vision, but allowing a team to develop a vision. Try not to micromanage, which has pluses and negatives. Sometimes when you don't micromanage, things fall through the crack and that. Now, a great leader in higher ed, because see, we're really not, to me, we're not higher ed. I'm not sure. Higher ed within Tarrant County College would be, to me, would be the division chairs and such. And in a university, it would be the division chairs and such, or campus or college presidents and such. So I'm not saying we're not doing education, but I view it differently and all that.
Okay.
The hardest part of managing people is people. Was it how I expected to be? Hell no. Manage diverse groups of people, hell no, still a problem. Offer to aspiring administrator and get the heck out of the job and go do something else. Now, the biggest problem is that I have is motivating people, trying to keep them on task and on track without insulting them. I was saying, okay, if you don't have anything to do, all the people you're sitting around talking with have things to do. So you're keeping them from their job. Plus, you're not doing your job, and so I need you to go do your job. But doing it in such a way not to hurt their feelings or whatever, because then at least they're not hanging out with everybody else, but then they're not getting productive. And performance reviews are coming up. And that's a real hard one for some people when you say, no, you're not perfect. Or your work is not perfect. You may be perfect, but your work is not perfect. And you're not the brightest star in this entire universe. And, and doing it in such a way that they don't get their feelings hurt. That they say, well, yeah, that's probably true. That's a very difficult part of the job. And because, one, you kind of just blow it off. Well, that's not doing you or the person any good, or the college any good. If you make too much of a point of it, then you just insulted somebody when that's not really what you were trying to do. And there's times that that I may insult people, never on purpose, but actually insult them and all of that. Biggest weakness of 5 weaknesses, we'll say, is that if we meet and agree on something, and not necessarily we decided on my way, but we decided on a way, that's what I expect to happen. And when it changes, it's fine if I'm informed. If it changes and I find out, I do not deal with that well. And depending on how bad it changed, is how poorly I deal with it. And that's something that I probably will never get over. And I explain that to people. You know, it's like, okay, I think it's a stupid idea, but go do it. But this is what we agreed to do. Wait a minute, what's going on isn't at all what we talked about. Well, we got to talking and I said, okay, I have email, I have text, I have a phone here and at home, I have smoke signals. There's lots of ways that you could say, by the way, we changed what we're doing because somebody had a different idea. In other words, I don't mind the change. It's if we agree on something, that's what I expect to happen unless I'm told the bridge. And like I say, I don't know that I'm going to get over that or anything, and people accept it or not. And sometimes when that happens and I react to it, is then they take it personal. Like nothing to do with personality. And that's the hard part of managing people is giving them freedom. You got to manage authority and responsibility with accountability. If you tell somebody they need to do something, then hold them accountable that they did it and not just letting them off. You know, because again, when you just let them off, you're not teaching them anything, and whatever needs to be done doesn't get done.
But when you took the job as a director, and you knew that you were probably going to have people under you, you kind of have an idea of how you want to do it. And now that you're in it and you've been in it for a while, was it what you expected?
No, I expect everybody to do exactly what they're told, exactly the way I tell them to do it, exactly when I do it, and be happy doing it. But then I had a cup of coffee and reality set in. It was learning as I go and trying to learn from others. A smart man, in fact, my stepfather was good at it, is hire the best people you can and give them the freedom of making mistakes. Because it's very exceptional to be someone that's the expert in everything. But what the smart person does is you surround yourself with the experts, and also you allow them to be the experts and learn from them. You know what I'm saying is there's a lot about adult ed that I'm not ever really going to understand, but if I have people that do understand it or have a vision that I don't have, and I'm smart enough to give them freedom to explore that vision with a light rein, so to keep them back, pull them back when need to. Then I think that's what my job is. I stop and kind of reflect on the title director and the responsibility of a director, and comparing it to other roles where you have a director, and kind of reaffirm, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm not the doer. I'm not really even the manager. I'm the director, and my job is to get these people to do their job. And and I'm comfortable with that. What do you want to be known for? Oh, Lordy, I wonder about that. I want to be known as a person that was fair to others, that I don't know, that was fair to others, that made a difference in the college and the community through working with others. Someone that could also be a friend, or someone that has a certain compassion for other people in their personal lives and all that. Because there's some people I know that they don't care if you have a family, they don't care if you've got kids, they don't care if someone died and all that. Just, okay, well, just try not to be late for work. Yeah. And I'd hope that would kind of be my legacy.
Okay.
And that's it.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Anderson.
And you'll turn this into some kind of a
Narrative.
humorous script.
Right.
and I see it on YouTube or something.